Thanks so much, Jared, and welcome to the Midweek Tackle, a triple treat Tribunal Tuesday. For all of those who celebrate, we'll keep you updated on the pending Tribunal cases as they unfold. My name's Lauren Wood. I'm joined by Josh Barnes and Jon Ralph. A magnificent occasion to have you here with us, boys. Two of the best newsbreakers in the business on a massive news night. Ralphie, Adam Cerra from the Blues has already discovered his fate for that umpire contact, and geez, it was a weird one. A
$5,500 fine in the end after the AFL and, of course, the Carlton Footy Club quibble over a $1,250 difference in fines. Matty Rowley's turning cartwheels tonight. He's not losing his Brownlow eligibility. He's not getting suspended. He just signed a $2.8 million deal. Do you reckon he cares about a potential $5,500 fine in the next 6 weeks? So we waited 5 days for an AFL tribunal, and then the advocate brought out the biggest wet lettuce of all time, and we get a fine. So why that fine? It's actually double the normal fine for umpire contact. And here's the really interesting part. Now, Jared Waitley, he brought the emotion. His head nearly popped off. I'm going to bring you the reasoning, which is the normal, the opposite way around. So there's two fines of categories, low-level fines, and the normal third offence is $10,000, and then you can accept a guilty plea after that. That's low-level stuff like kicking and headbutting and punching. The umpire contact stuff is only $5,000 for a third or subsequent offence. So in its own actions, the AFL is saying that we believe umpire contact is half as bad as all the other stuff. Now, the public messaging has been the opposite of that. So I would imagine after a $5,500 fine, which makes the AFL look faintly ridiculous after all the money they've spent, the first thing they should do tomorrow is say, OK, umpire contact, $10,000 or $15,000, whatever it is, because no one believes there's going to be suspensions, and everyone right now is laughing at that fine for all of the hullabaloo over nothing.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it, Barnesy? I mean, they moved incredibly quickly on this umpire contact one. I know the players have been calling out for a review of this MRO system probably for the better part of 2 years, really, but they can move quickly when they want to, and I think it wouldn't be Australia, as you say, Ralphie, to have them come out tomorrow and really put a stop to this, because, well, as we saw tonight, I mean, it's just cost everyone time and money. Yeah,
it was a waste of time, as our friend Jared quite eloquently detailed. We're spending time and money when, as you said, Ralphie, we could have just fixed this on Monday or Friday even for Adam Cerra and got that fine and got that out of the way. It is an issue, as you mentioned, that's been bubbling away, is the rubric and the problems in the rubric. We've talked about this over and over again. It's a problem that will confront us in the next hour or two about Tristan Xerri and his suspension, whether we think a 3-week suspension is right or not. It's a hefty price for a quick sort of arm swing where I'm sure a lot of people would say he might have to go for that, but it should go for a lesser penalty than 3 weeks. It's probably 3 or nothing. This is the problem, that they can't change that quickly, but they can make these umpire calls sort of out of the blue, Ralphie.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Xerri. I think he's probably more likely to get the 3 weeks and keep it at 3 weeks for the old coat hanger. So maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but what's the ramifications if he does get suspended? He's probably the best all-round ruckman in the game this year.
Close to it.
Yeah, and so, look, I think we should have 2 ruckmen in the AFL All-Australian team anyway, but we look at the options here and we also look at that coat hanger. So Tristan Xerri's had 3 ordinary weeks off a hamstring, and now he's potentially going to miss 3 more weeks. We'll have a look at that. Luke Jackson's the 3rd or 4th best ruckman in the comp on Champion Data ratings. Brodie Grundy's the best player in the whole comp in the last 6 weeks. Max Gawn's Papa Bear, leading clearances, contests, score launches, disposals. And if you're a Pies fan, you're saying, what has Darcy Cameron done wrong? And so this is the conundrum for the AFL. So we had 5 years there in a row from 2020 to 20 onwards where we had 2 rucks in the AFL All-Australian team. Before that, you had to go back another 10 years. I think Luke Jackson's the no-brainer. I don't think the key forwards in the AFL have an amazing year. So if it's Luke Jackson in a pocket or a bench and you want to put a Xerri or a Cameron or a Grundy in, I think you can do that. But, yeah, I think if I'm someone like Nathan Buckley, I'm pushing really hard in the All-Australian team for 2 All-Australian ruckmen.
No, generally, I disagree, Ralphie, because no team generally picks 2 rucks. You're not going to pick Max Gawn and Tristan Xerri in the same side, even if they were on your list. It failed at Melbourne when they did that with Grundy and Gawn, and by the end of it, Grundy wasn't in the team. So generally, that doesn't work, but I think Luke Jackson is a perfect example of fitting that in. He is the second ruck right now. He starts in centre bounce. It's not even in the ruck behind Sean Darcy. So if you're going to play a second ruck, he's the one to pick this year.
And normally we'll just say to yourself, OK, Charlie Curnow, no. You know, Jeremy Cameron's been hot at times, no. You know, the reigning Coleman medalist, and Hogan misses again after a couple of weeks out with a foot as well. So, yeah, I don't think any of the key position players are mounting a compelling case. Yeah, the star midfielders are always pushing. But, yeah, 2 rucks for me, Lauren.
It's far too logical from you, Josh, about putting Gawn and Sherry in the same team. This team actually never plays. It doesn't have to be logical. It's just the two best.
Team Mars would be in trouble, right?
That's exactly right. It is going to be interesting, though. I mean, what's the threshold? If he gets the 3 games, as you say, the All-Australian you'd think is potentially off the table. But if he manages to argue it down to 2, you only miss the 2 weeks, is he still in the frame? While we're on Tribunal 2, Dev Robertson is the other one. And, of course, Zac Bailey, that one is still deliberating. So we'll keep you across that one. But let's get to the 20th team of the competition. Yes, you heard that correctly, the 20th team. We know that the vote is going through Tasmanian Parliament this weekend as to which way the state votes on that one for the 19th team. But Josh, you've got an exclusive update coming tomorrow on where the game could be headed potentially after Tasmania. Tell us about it, because this is a big one. Yeah, so for the first time tonight, the door is wide open to a third team in WA. It's been rumoured around the football circles that WA would be a place for a third expansion team alongside West Coast and Fremantle. For the first time tonight, instead of closing the door, the WA Football Commission has thrown it open. They are open to bids and open to talking about it. I spoke to the WA Football CEO, Michael Roberts, today. He said, we're looking forward to further discussions with the AFL and the state government. It's a positive thing that WA has been talked about as a potential third team. They're going to have to figure out the money side of things. They're going to have to figure out a lot of things. But in the past, the door has been pretty much shut, Ralphie, and now the WA football is open to talking about it.
Yeah, this is absolutely a massive story from you. I keep thinking about the WA government and how desperate they are to get events there. So they paid $8 million for 2 Coldplay concerts last year. I know there were a lot of people who flew in from different states and overseas for that as well. But the goodwill there is massive. We know the finances are there. And if you look at the AFL, if they do have a team maybe in somewhere like Northern Territory, it's a $30 million a year enterprise for the AFL. It will always be $30 million. Whereas if you put in a team in somewhere like WA who can wash their own face in their finances, maybe it gets down to a $10 million investment a year. That's a $20 million saving. So they've always been a pretty hard no. For them to even be considering that overture now is a huge story. Yeah, well, that is the early stages. The more serious stages is what's happening in the Northern Territory, as you mentioned. And also for the first time tonight, you can hear the name, Ralphie. Territory Lightning is being bandied around as a potential name for that 20th side. They're adamant that they will only be a 20th side. They're only interested in following in the Devils after they hopefully come in 2028. But they're already targeting a date. 2032 is when they are coming into the competition. Sean Bowden, the AFL-NT chair, says if we could do it earlier, we will. They've got colours, black, white and ochre, which is the traditional colours of the Northern Territory, and they've got a fixture plan. They're going to play 3 to 4 games in Alice Springs to start the season in a revamped Traeger Park, and then build a brand new stadium in Darwin to play the rest of the game. So they'll play until May or so down in the heart of Australia and then move up north. And they think, as with a lot of other people in football, this will complete the picture of Australian football if we have a team in the Tassie and a team in the Territory. Oh, massive on it. I think we've been left behind by Peter Vlandis and the NRL and their expansion, and maybe not all of their teams will work there, but even just talking about it and stimulating that interest is so critical. Why is 2032 a really big date? That's the end of the TV rights, so you'd imagine there that we're looking at an extra game of football. Yeah, well, I was pondering this as well, Ralphie, and I spoke to one of the task force members, Andrew Demetriou, who knows a little bit about expansion teams. Yeah. He knows a little bit about AFL. He knows a little bit about broadcast rights. And the broadcast agreement now ends in 2032. So if they come in around that time and say, we're the 20th team, that's 10 games a week, that could be, according to Demetriou's quick maths, about $100 million a year added into the AFL system just based on the current broadcast agreement. So that's cash coming in right there, a guaranteed extra game, and then you can start talking conferences, you can start talking a final 10, a final 12 or whatever you want to do, add more into the fixture, and we know the AFL likes to make money. I think it'd be huge too. I mean, we spent time this time last week at this desk talking about the lack of Indigenous pathways in the game as well. So I think to have a team in the top end, an academy to potentially go with that, I think it'd be huge. Yeah, and that's definitely part of it as well. Part of the Territory pitch is they're building sporting hubs in the Territory to bring people into the game. We know they love football. They love playing football in the Territory. It'll keep people in football longer. We know that's just good for the whole community if that's the case. So horrific racial abuse to a couple of our Indigenous stars. We always are sceptical about anyone's chances of cracking down and tracking down these people. You've got a big update tonight, Laura. Yeah, so we heard from Chris Davies at Port Adelaide today, who said that Jace Burgoyne was considering engaging with police in regards to the messages that he received on Sunday evening. I can tell you tonight that Nasiah Wanganeen-Millerer is also currently weighing up his options. Of course, the Star St Kilda playmaker was subjected to some really graphic and
and heinous messages on Sunday evening after St Kilda's loss to Sydney. So both players, I think they feel like they are in it together. They were sharing each other's posts. A lot of their teammates got behind them as well. But as I say, they are currently weighing it up. And I think it naturally comes off the back of the NBL story we saw last week with Montrezl Harrell, the first ever NBL player and really Australian athlete to manage to unmask an anonymous troll, as it were. We saw he received a number of racist messages to him about 9 months ago, went to police through Basketball Australia's integrity unit. That man has now been charged as of last week and will face court next month, which is a really interesting shot across the bow, I think, when it comes to anonymous trolls and who then end up named, you know, their workplaces out there and all of that sort of thing. So you would think that Jace and Nazaya have seen that example that's happened over the last week. So both of their clubs are really adamant that they will stand with both players and support them in whatever they choose to do. But I think it'll be a really powerful statement. Yeah, we know it shouldn't ever get to this stage, but hopefully a couple of stars and they can help dissuade the idiots out there making mistakes. Now, Ralphie, Zac Merrett was stoic on AFL 360 only minutes ago. Where are things at with him and the Bombers? So we'll hear from him in a second. Shane Crawford's adamant, though, it is time for Zac Merrett to fly the coop and time to explore other trade opportunities. Now, why does Crawford matter? Because he's the poster boy for staying. So, of course, in 2004, when Alistair Clarkson came in, he was the captain, as Merrett is as well. And he thought about it, and Sydney and Collingwood had a real crack at him. In the end, he stayed. But as he told me tonight, if he had stayed and not won the premiership, he would have been bitter and angry. Now, his warning is that the premierships don't always happen if you stick fat at your football club. He thinks that Merrett could go to a club, yes, like a Hawthorn, but someone in the premiership mode, defensive intent, you know, elite skills, and just says to him, you know, you need to finish your career with an AFL premiership. Now, Zac wasn't in the mood to discuss that kind of moving on tonight. Here's what Zac said on AFL 360.
Yeah, I'm all in. I'm contracted for 2 more years. I'm the captain of the footy club. I've got so much trust in Brad and what he's doing, and I really want to see that through, and that plan through. The strategy is a bit longer than I probably would hopefully have liked when I signed 4 years ago, but I think it's pretty clear now. As I said, these kids are coming through, and yeah, I want to taste that ultimate success with the footy club.
So well said. We'll see how that trade deal plays out. Now, Andrew Russell has emerged as a person of interest as Essendon works through their own injury crisis. Now, he was the man, of course, who saved Shane Crawford there. Yep. 2008, he had that patella issue. Everyone said he needed surgery. He got him there and he, of course, won the premiership in his last game. So his tenure at Carlton did not end well at all. He had 1 bad year and 25 outstanding years at Essendon, Port Adelaide, Hawthorn, the 4 premierships, and then Carlton. Now, Crawford says he's not just a strength and conditioning man. He's a mind coach. He's a performance coach. He says it's crazy he's not involved in the AFL at the moment. He's outstanding. Ask Patrick Cripps how highly he would rate Andrew Russell. Speak to Kane Corns. He's on a different level. Of course, Darren Burgess, the contracted Adelaide fitness boss, has been mentioned in dispatches. Sean Murphy's the current Essendon boss since 2019. He's actually the underling at Hawthorn with Andrew. So I think Andrew would be an advisor, maybe not just a strength and conditioning man. Yeah. A consultant. I think he'd be outstanding. So we'll see how that plays out. But something's going to change there, and you'd probably believe that they need changes in terms of personnel, and maybe Andrew's a person to fix it. Well, particularly when you look at that injury list on screen now that has, of course, grown over the last few days, Josh. It's unfortunate, to say the least. I mean, there's been so much said about it in recent days, but of their best 22, there's sort of not many left, is there, at the moment? No, the names just keep getting added over and over again. It's been a disaster, obviously. If Andrew Russell came in, he's got a lot of work to do, Ralphie, I think. So they're going to have to continue that review we spoke about last week and revamp, I guess, the whole program, because the wheels have fallen off a little bit. Yeah. Hey, Ralphie, while we're on the Bombers, we're having a look ahead to the next few weeks of fixture. Of course, only a few weeks to go of the season proper, but they've got some primetime games, of course, coming up, which I think all of us, you know, raise questions at the moment about the prospect of a floating fixture. I know a lot of fans don't like it when it comes to travel and that sort of thing, but the alternative is you end up in a situation like this with a team like Essendon in every blockbuster spot. Yeah, that's right. And so they are in every blockbuster spot. So 6 of the last 7 games are Thursday or Friday, and the other game is a Saturday twilight, which, of course, is such a fantastic slot in Super Saturday. Spoken with the AFL, they said they're not interested in a bigger flexing arrangement where maybe 15 games and then another 5 and another 6 or something like that. They feel like there's some certainty early in the season, and then, of course, there's some allowances there for clubs to try and move around into better fixture slots. So here's a little look at what I think, a little bit of intel, a little bit of guesstimation in terms of what round 24 could look like. So we know that Gold Coast Essendon game is the final game in the Wednesday before the pre-finals bye. So to give both of those teams a 6-day break, you play them on a Thursday doubleheader. Now, broadcasters are really keen for a Brisbane-Hawthorn Friday night clash. Could be winning, you're in.
Massive game.
If you're Hawthorn, and then you want to finish the weekend with a bang. So Dogs Freo is the Sunday twilighter. Now, potentially, again, win or you're in.
Huge.
Collingwood-Melbourne becomes the Channel 7 game. Collingwood might be pushing for top spot. How do you like the look of that one? And, of course, then you sort of weave in a couple of those, also-ran games in earlier slots on Saturday and Sunday.
I think it's the best result of a bad situation, isn't it? I mean, AFLW was obviously hoping to get Thursday nights for itself from, obviously, that round 23 onwards. They've been cost by the cyclone. But, it's the best of a bad bunch, really. As you say, you've got to work in those extra breaks. And, gee, Barnes, if you can have a couple of those, as you say, Ralphie, win and you're in games, that's what everybody wants.
Yeah, it's interesting when we're talking about Dogs and Freo being a marquee match. Well, Essendon and Carlton play on that Thursday night, and we just want to get that out of the way. But it should be a couple of huge games. That Brisbane and Hawthorn game on potentially a Friday night, I feel would be monstrous.
Yeah, Ralphie, there's been so much talk about Carlton in recent days. They're on that 4-game losing streak as well. There has been so much conjecture around the future of Michael Voss as well. You've got some details about what it could cost the Blues if they do move on him.
Yeah, they reported a couple of weeks back that Michael's Voss is pretty much guaranteed, Michael's deal rather. So if it is that they pay him out, it'll be close to $1 million. Now, what they also have to think about is the football tax implications of it. So if they did decide to move him on and replace him with someone on a similar wage like John Longmire, it's about a $1.5 million impost, given maybe $500,000 of tax. So the AFL has tweaked its formula for that luxury tax, but it's still a lot. So say you start paying over $500,000 over that tax, you're paying a dollar for dollar, so you're paying an extra $500,000 in tax. Now, you can potentially spread it out over a couple of years. We saw that with Alistair Clarkson, and potentially that's what might have happened with Adam Simpson as well. But effectively, you are paying a lot of money, which is members' money there. It's not the only factor, but if you're quibbling and thinking, do we bring in a younger coach? Are we really going to spend that money? We're not sure. It's just another thing the board might consider. So, yeah, Mick Sheehan was pretty adamant that he'll be moving on. That decision hasn't been made. We fear it's going in that direction, but it will be a costly decision for the Carlton Football Club.
Yeah, huge occasion for them, of course, on Saturday night against Melbourne, the 10th annual Carlton Respects game. I caught up with Mark Pittonet yesterday, who, of course, is the ambassador for that game, incredibly passionate about the cause. That's in tomorrow's newspapers. And, of course, it is a big occasion for the club. We can tell you that the pre-game ceremony this year will feature 78 lights on the MCG, so they're really encouraging people to get in their seats by 7 p.m. That's, of course, a light for every woman who has been killed through domestic violence since the start of 2024. So an incredibly important cause. Carlton also selling virtual seats for this game as well that you can get your hands on if you can't get to the MCG. So it's a big occasion for the Blues, not just in a footy sense. We all know that they need to arrest that losing streak, but a very big night for them and a very big, passionate cause that the club is right behind. North Melbourne, Ralphie, take us to Arden Street, because we all know that hindsight is 20/20 and we love to look back at the drafts of years gone by, but they have had a couple of misses and you've done a deep dive on this one.
Yeah, look, we don't want to kick them when they're down, and of course they are a long way down, but it's probably more a philosophical argument about talls versus small. So of course we know about the Aaron Cadman debate. He was amazing on the weekend, six goals, a new 4-year contract. They traded away pick one, and of course they also traded away Jason Horne-Francis. They got Sheasel and Wardlaw. They probably could have got Sheasel and Cadman. You take the tall and the small. So now we get the second horror story from the 23 draft. Now again, we know that they missed out on Harley Reid when they won that final game of the season against Gold Coast. But in the lead into that draft, Alistair Clarkson was on gardening leave. Of course, he was taking a mental health break, and he was over in James Brayshaw's wedding in Perth. And as part of that, he spent a couple of hours with Daniel Curtin, full of admiration for him. He's a very good player, signed his own new contract extension, an absolutely outstanding figure. They were really worried about the flight risk, and there was talk about whether he wanted to stay in WA. Curtin's flying. Dersma, of course, was the second pick. Colby McKercher at 2, Dersma at 4. Jed Walder was in between. Dersma's not playing great football. He's looking around a bit, even though he's contracted. So they're sliding those moments. Everyone gets draft picks wrong, but it's about whether you want to prioritise all midfielders or get a blend of them. And North haven't really done that. They've taken picks like Hardiman and Dawson and Goad later on, but you just wonder whether that's coming back to bite them, and all North Melbourne fans are aware they have traded away their future first-round pick, which right now is sitting at pick 2.
These WA weddings, there was Harley Reid catching up with Sam Mitchell as well. You wouldn't be letting your players anywhere near them. Now let's get to the newsroom with David Zeta, who's got some breaking news on the Zac Bailey Tribunal hearing. Zeets, we've got a result.
We do. So Zac Bailey's ban has been upheld. The Lions tried to downgrade medium impact to low impact. That failed. Now the Lions pointed to 7 other incidents that were graded low impact. They said that this fell comfortably within them. Also pointing to the fact via Adrian Anderson, their legal representative, that this was a primarily body bump with incidental head-high contact. The Tribunal found that that is not relevant in the case. They found that this was something that did have the potential to cause a more serious injury, and they had no hesitation in upholding the charge as a medium impact one. So that means that Zac Bailey misses this week's game against the Western Bulldogs. So 2 down, Tristan Xerri's still to come.
Well, David set to bunker down for another tribunal hearing. How do we feel about that result?
Oh, it's a massive decision there because Luke Beveridge would have thought, all right, all of a sudden this bloke is off the table and he stays off the table. That is huge for a club that is right now out of the finals. Thought they mounted a really good case. They showed 7 incidents there which have been assessed as low impact. And even though, of course, there was head-high contact, it was an accidental head clash. So a really good argument from Adrian Anderson, who, of course, got Charlie Cameron off on the good bloke rule. He would have felt really confident 10 minutes ago. But, Jeff Gleeson gets his man.
And a lot of magnet moving for Chris Fagan. Late into the night tonight, no doubt, Zac Bailey, one of the informed players of the competition, sidelined for this week with that ban upheld. We'll be back with more very shortly here on the Midweek Tackle, including an exclusive Code Sports investigation, talking to the game's biggest deal makers who reveal the hardest and easiest clubs to negotiate with as they get to the nitty-gritty part of the season. We'll be back with that and plenty more on the Midweek Tackle. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back to the Midweek Tackle. Of course, D-Day looms at the polls for Tasmania. We spoke a little bit about them earlier, Josh, but you've had a forensic look. They're very, very firm on 2028, and you can lift a lid on their recruiting plans down there.
Yeah, it has been a little bit of a stalemate in Tassie while they wait for the election on Saturday. But after that, they'll get moving, hopefully, and start talking about player recruiting, which is going to be the big topic on everyone's list. I spoke to Grant O'Brien last week about what they're going to do there, and for the first time, we've had a name of the type of player they're after. He pointed to Callan Ward as the kind of player that they're looking for. So they want leadership when they go hunting for superstars. He said it doesn't necessarily have to be a superstar player, but they have to bring that kind of leadership that he brought along. They're also looking in particular at Geelong and the way they recruit and bringing that country lifestyle and having a bit of a point of difference. And the other thing is he wants half of the side of the Tasmanian Devils, both men and women's, to be made up of Tasmanian born and bred players by 2040. So they're going to be really going hard over those players in the Tassie region. It's
an interesting and important approach, Ralphie. We've heard about what they need in a coach, and that you've spoken about that they really need, a tourism ambassador as much as a coach in that regard. But this is about building a club, really, isn't it, rather than a team, those real fabric players.
No doubt. So Gold Coast went and got the best player in the competition, and you could criticise them, but I never have because I thought that was what they needed. And yet you'd say that the other team went and got the 2 best blokes in the competition in Phil Davis and Cal Ward. A great week too, given the under-16 Tasmanian team obliterated. I think it was the Allies there in a under-16 game. So that's just more rich territory to say we need all of those kids in an academy. We want all of those kids in our side in a couple of years. Yeah, you saw that list of Suns players. I'm sure, apart from Go, they played excellent individual football, and not many of the others worked out, whereas Phil Davis and Callan Ward were massive parts of that football club for 10 years, and plus Callan Ward is still there and still part of the fabric. Now, tell us about this Code Sports inquiry, because I think Ross Lyon's a huge fan of Code Sports as a whole. I know he's got a log in. He might not be thrilled with some of the results of the recent investigation. No, so this is a multi-part series on codesports.com.au. I would encourage you to go and have a look at it. Part of that has been an anonymous player agent survey that was open to all player agents to complete. A range of questions covering basically all bases in what they deal with clubs. Now, what it has revealed, Ralphie, we know that clubs are getting into the real sort of talking turkey time at this time of year. St Kilda, according to the player agents, are officially the most difficult club to deal with on this front. Almost 30% of the player agents who returned the anonymous survey have identified the Saints as the toughest club when it comes to those really, really difficult negotiations there. Best? Port also hard, Collingwood, Essendon. No surprises here. We just spoke about them in the Tassie sense. Geelong identified as the best, followed by Richmond. So I don't know what your dealings have been like this with clubs over the years, but you look at the St Kilda list department at the moment and they talk tough, and it seems like they act tough with the agents. I don't need to go into bat for Ross, but I'm going to be glass half full here because I'll have to confront him at the next press conference. Maybe it's because they had the top 4 wage bill and the bottom 4 least, and so they've had to really recalibrate that. And so I'd prefer to say it's because of some of the tough decisions in terms of, reduced contracts contracts rather than the fact that Gubby Allen and Steve Silvani are real old-fashioned hard asses. Let's take the former view.
Yeah, another thing that the survey did put to player agents was who they believe will be the game's next or first $2 million player. We've spoken about a number of names at this desk. They talked about Cozzy Pickett. They talked about Tom De Koning, of course, that big contract. But the Bulldogs' big man, it was Sam Darcy, was overwhelmingly the favourite among player agents to be that, and I think it would suit him beautifully.
They haven't looked at his contract. So he signed a 4-year deal in November last year. If you're looking at the player who's going to be that person, it's Harley Reid, whether it's this year or next, something like $20 million over 10 years. Very early on, he'll be a $2 million player.
Interesting you say that. As part of the responses, one manager said Harley Reid right now on the open market is worth $450,000, Ralphie, which would be remarkable if he only
They take off the fines that he accrues and all of a sudden it's $1 million deal to 400.
So he was very, very unlevel in terms of the responses for him, whereas Sam Darcy was unanimously 1 million plus, heading towards 2.
A few agents taking the opportunity to dish on each other too. I think one response that made their life difficult was other agents throwing out BS numbers in the media, which we're obviously big advocates for any agents doing. Now, the future of the bounce, Ralphie, there's so much spoken about this. What's the latest?
So Greg Swan comes in next week. I don't think he likes the bounce very much. He's got strong advocates. Spoke to Paddy Dangerfield tonight. His view, get rid of it. You could have one umpire per game to the first bounce, right for a little bit of history. Then you move on because the game has moved on. In 2017, the man who knocked back the request to ban the bounce was Richard Goyder. He called it unique. As Peter Schwab says, the man who was the umpiring coach at the time, it's like the drop kick. As soon as we get rid of it, we'll say, why did we ever do that? Bravo. Hope that's what the AFL does over summer.
Yeah.
No, keep it. I'm a Richard Goyder fan, one of his few.
I'll let you two have it out now. That's it from us at the Midweek Tackle. All the latest news, of course, at codesports.com.au. We'll see you there.